And I've talked about how, back in the day, you read, legends and myths and things, and there's always these wizard characters and these wizened elders that people seek wisdom from and prophecies. And I've always said that, not trying to make it sound ridiculous, but what we're doing here is sort of a return of the old world. What happened in 1918 with the murder and martyrdom of Tsar Nicholas and his family, that was the final victory of, you know, them boys and the Zionist entity and the people behind them over the Anshan regime, which was, in whatever form it was in, the legacy of the Constantinian Roman Empire, which reigned not just from 330 until 1453, but in reality from 330 to 1917, 1918.
Right.
And when you understand that, you understand that, sure, even if at one point it might be dominated by Russia or Greek culture, or, maybe at one time you could argue Serbian culture, if depending on how you interpret, Roman Byzantine history, it wasn't actually just, oh, this was Serbian nationalism, this was this. There was a Christian culture that did transcend language, even if it did look very similar at the times where it was manifested. And part of these prophecies, I think, for Americans, if you're truly trying to actually, again, not to say that you have to abandon your American identity, but embrace your Christian identity and become, for lack of a better word, a thickly enculturated person into the culture of Christ and the church, obviously you're going to develop a fairly complex eschatology. The reason Americans are so averse to these sorts of things is because our identity is sort of lack of identity at a certain level. Like, if your identity is freedom, liberty, the fact that, Americans are very transient. The average American moves like 10 times in their life. This idea that when religious freedom is the basis as opposed to the religion itself, one, I would argue that's an idol, but two, it just becomes the idea of freedom is going to very quickly supersede any of the religious values themselves.